The day my grandmother died, my mother-in-law Daisy told me I was wearing the wrong shade of black to the funeral. I smiled and nodded, just like I had for the past 12 years of marriage, while she adjusted my collar like I was a child who couldn't dress herself. My name is Mara, and I've spent over a decade being the perfect daughter-in-law, wife, and family accountant. The last role wasn't official, of course. It was just expected, given my little job in wealth management, as Daisy loved to call it. "Sweetheart, have you thought about what you're going to do with all that money?" Seamus asked later that night, his hand on my shoulder as I stared at my grandmother's photograph. "We should probably discuss it before you make any decisions." I looked up at my husband's familiar smug smile, the same one he wore when he borrowed my credit card or when he convinced me to put his name on my condo's deed 5 years ago. "I haven't even buried her yet, Seamus." Of course, he backpedaled, but I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. "I just worry about you handling such a large sum alone." "You know how emotional you can get about money?" The irony of that statement would have made me laugh if I wasn't so numb. This from the man who had burned through his trust fund by 25 and hadn't held a steady job since. "Mara, darling." Daisy's voice carried through our house like a foghorn. She had her own key. Of course she did. "I brought dinner." "Heaven knows you're in no state to cook." I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floors, followed by the rustle of expensive shopping bags. "Oh, good, Seamus. You're here too. We need to discuss something important." She swept into the living room wearing designer black, perfect for someone else's funeral. The takeout containers she set down were from the overpriced bistro she knew I hated. "I've been talking to Jade. You remember Jade, the realtor? That gorgeous lake house we looked at last summer is back on the market. The one with the boat dock?" Daisy's eyes gleamed as she arranged the food. "It would be perfect for the family. A real legacy property." Seamus perked up. "The one with the wine cellar?" "The very same." Daisy turned to me, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. "Mara, dear, I know this is a difficult time, but your grandmother would have wanted you to be smart with her gift. Real estate is the safest investment." I picked at my food, watching them exchange glances. They'd clearly discussed this before coming to me. "The thing is," Daisy continued, reaching for my hand across the table, "given your emotional state, it might be better if Seamus and I handled the paperwork. Put the deed in our names, just to protect you from yourself." I felt Seamus squeeze my shoulder again. "Mom's right, honey." "You're not thinking clearly right now." The food turned to ash in my mouth as I watched them, my husband and his mother, planning how to best help me spend my inheritance. Just like they'd helped me spend my savings, my bonuses, my future. "I don't know," I said softly, playing my part. "It's such a big decision." "Exactly why you need us," Daisy said firmly. "We're family. We know what's best." I nodded, letting my eyes water slightly, not difficult given the circumstances. "Could I at least see the house first?" "Of course!" Daisy practically glowed with victory. "I'll have Jade set up a viewing tomorrow. The sooner we move on this, the better." As they discussed floor plans and boat sizes, I excused myself to make a phone call. In my home office, behind a closed door, I dialed a number I knew by heart. "Stephanie? It's Mara. Remember that conversation we had about karma last month?" "I think it's time." I paused, listening to my best friend and lawyer's response. "Yes, they took the bait, exactly like you said they would." I hung up and returned to the dining room, where Daisy was already planning the housewarming party. I smiled and nodded, just like always. But this time, I meant it. "The interest rate seems a bit high." Seamus frowned at the paperwork Percy had laid out on his mahogany desk. My husband's eyes glazed over as he scanned the numbers. Numbers had never been his strong suit, despite his claims otherwise. "Market volatility," Percy replied smoothly, adjusting his tie. I'd chosen him carefully. a mortgage broker who understood discretion and didn't ask unnecessary questions. But with Mrs. Wood's inheritance as collateral, we can proceed quickly. I sat quietly in my chair, playing with my grandmother's ring. The morning sun through Percy's office windows caught the diamond, sending little rainbows dancing across the contract pages. "Mara, sweetie," Daisy's voice dripped honey, "are you sure you want to put up all that money? We could look at other properties." "No," I said softly, letting my voice waver. "You were right. This is what Gran would have wanted. Family legacy and all that." Daisy beamed, patting my hand. "I knew you'd see reason." "Now, about the deed." "As discussed," Percy interrupted, sliding forward another document. "Given the unique nature of this arrangement, the deed will be in your and your son's names, Mrs. Dunn, but the mortgage responsibility falls to you both as well." Of course. Of course." Daisy waved her hand dismissively. "Mara needs the protection, don't you, dear?" I nodded, watching Seamus sign without reading, just like he always did when he thought he was getting something for nothing. Later that afternoon, Jade met us at the lake house. The realtor's perfect blonde hair caught the breeze as she unlocked the front door, chattering about crown molding and original hardwood floors. "The previous owners barely used it," Jade gushed, leading us through the foyer. "Everything's practically brand new." "Perfect for entertaining," Daisy declared, running her finger along a marble countertop. "Though we'll need to update these fixtures, so—" "Common." I trailed behind them, phone in hand, recording every dismissive comment and grandiose plan. Stephanie had been clear, documentation was key. "And this will be my office," Seamus announced, standing in a sun-filled room overlooking the lake. Finally, a proper place to work. I bit back a laugh. My husband hadn't worked since his last failed startup 3 years ago, the one I'd funded with my bonus. "Mara," Jade called from the master bedroom, "don't you want to see where you'll be sleeping?" I joined them, watching Daisy run her hands over the silk wallpaper. "We'll need to redecorate, of course. Your taste is a bit basic." "Whatever you think is best," I murmured, catching Jade's sympathetic glance. She didn't know she was playing a part in my plan, but her witness statement would be valuable later. Back at Percy's office, the final papers waited. Stephanie had vetted them personally, ensuring every clause was ironclad. "Just one last signature," Percy said, pointing to the line at the bottom. "Mrs. Wood, as the funding party." "Actually," I interrupted, hands folded in my lap, "I think Daisy should sign first, since she's so good with these things." Daisy practically snatched the pen, her signature flourishing across the page. Seamus followed suit, still not reading. "Congratulations," Percy said, gathering the papers. "The house is yours." "Finally!" Daisy stood, already reaching for her phone. "I need to call the interior designer, and the landscaper, oh, and the boat dealer." I watched them leave, staying behind to handle the boring details, as Seamus put it. Once they were gone, Percy handed me a separate folder. "Everything's in order," he confirmed. "The trigger clause is on page 6. Once activated—" "I know," I said, tucking the folder into my bag. Stephanie explained it all. "They really didn't read any of it, did they?" I smiled, thinking of all the times they'd dismissed my little job in wealth management and forensic accounting. They never do. They think I'm hopeless. "Are you sure about this?" Percy asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Family is—" "They stopped being family the day they started seeing me as an ATM. I cut him off, standing to leave. "I've just been patient." Walking to my car, I checked my phone. Daisy had already posted on social media about her new lake house. Perfect. The more witnesses to their ownership claims, the better. I started the engine, thinking about the ticking time bomb buried in those contracts. They wanted a legacy? I'd give them one they'd never forget. "You're playing a dangerous game," Stephanie said, spreading the contracts across her desk. The evening sun cast long shadows through her office windows, making the papers look like dominoes ready to fall. If they figure this out before everything's in place, they won't, I replied, watching her highlight key sections. Daisy's too busy ordering custom drapes, and Seamus hasn't read a contract since our prenup. Which, may I remind you, you didn't let me review. Stephanie shot me a pointed look. Speaking of which, have you considered what this might do to your marriage? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the marriage where my husband borrowed my emergency fund for a crypto investment? Or where he convinced me to sell my condo because married couples should live together? In his mother's investment property? Point taken. Stephanie circled another clause. But they might come after you personally when this unravels. Are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Daisy's name flashed on the screen. Mara, darling. Her voice could curdle milk. The contractor needs the first payment today. Can you transfer the funds? Of course, I said sweetly. I'll take care of it right away. And do try to be more responsive. I've called twice already. This is time sensitive. I ended the call, meeting Stephanie's concerned gaze. That's why I'm doing this. Every day another demand, another assumption, another little dig. Just remember, Stephanie handed me a fresh copy of the contract. Once we file these amendments, there's no going back. The immediate debt assumption clause will activate the moment they try to refinance or sell without my approval, I finished. I know, I wrote it. Back at the lake house, I found Seamus and Daisy in the kitchen with the contractor. Blueprints covered the marble island they just had installed. There you are, Daisy exclaimed. We've decided to expand the wine cellar. It'll add value to our investment. Our investment? I echoed, setting down my bag. Well, you know what I mean, she waved dismissively. Family investment. Now about that transfer. I pulled out the contract amendments. Just need a few signatures first. Standard stuff, contractor insurance, liability forms. Must we? Seamus sighed. Can't you handle the boring parts? Actually, since the deed is in your names. I let the sentence hang. Fine, fine. He grabbed a pen, signing without a glance. Daisy followed suit, already turning back to the blueprints. I trust you, Seamus said, kissing my cheek. You're good with all this paperwork nonsense. I watched them discuss wine racks and tasting rooms, thinking about trust and what it really meant. About all the times I'd trusted them, only to find my accounts drained or my concerns dismissed. That evening, I met Percy at a quiet bar downtown. He reviewed the signed amendments, nodding slowly. It's all here, he confirmed. Every signature, every initial, legal and binding. And the recording? He handed me a USB drive. Audio confirmation of their understanding and acceptance of terms, though they clearly didn't understand anything. I slipped the drive into my purse, thinking about Daisy's social media posts claiming the house as her crowning achievement. About Seamus's boast to his friends about his new lake property investment. They're planning a housewarming party, I told Percy. Invited half the country club. Perfect timing, he said. The more witnesses to their ownership claims, the better our position. My phone buzzed again. Another demand from Daisy, this time for landscaping funds. I turned it face down. Having second thoughts? Percy asked. I thought about my grandmother's last words to me. Don't let them take anything else from you, girl. You're stronger than they know. No, I said firmly, just imagining their faces when they realize what they've signed. When do you want to trigger it? I smiled, remembering all the times they'd called me naive, emotional, bad with money. Let them enjoy their party first. Let them really settle in. And then we show them exactly how good I am with paperwork nonsense. I raised my glass, thinking about karma and compound interest. Both take time, but the payoff is always worth the wait. To family legacies, I toasted. Percy clinked his glass against mine. May they get exactly what they deserve. The housewarming party buzzed with the energy of 100 wealthy vultures circling their newest obsession. I stood in a corner of the great room, sipping champagne and watching Daisy hold court. Of course we got it for a steal, she bragged to her social circle. Smart investing runs in the family. A waiter passed with hors d'oeuvres that cost more than my first car. I'd seen the catering bill. Or rather, I'd paid it. Mara, darling, Daisy beckoned me over. Come tell everyone how grateful you are that we helped you manage your inheritance so wisely. I plastered on my best daughter-in-law smile and joined her circle of designer-clad friends. Oh, I'm just so thankful for Daisy's guidance. Such a blessing, one of the women simpered. Not everyone knows how to handle sudden wealth. Speaking of wealth, Daisy cut in, wait until you see the wine cellar. Seamus, darling, give them the tour. My husband appeared, already 3 glasses deep, wearing the new Rolex he'd insisted was essential for a lake house owner. He'd charged it to our joint account yesterday. Ladies, right this way. He gestured grandly. Wait until you see what we've done with the place. I watched them disappear downstairs, their voices echoing up through the custom ventilation system I'd funded. My phone buzzed, a text from Percy. Everything set for Monday? I typed back. Perfect timing. They just maxed out the contractor credit line. Mara! Jade's voice startled me. The realtor approached, champagne in hand. This place looks amazing, though I barely recognized it from the listing. Daisy has quite the vision, I replied, watching her face. She certainly does. I saw her Instagram post about making this her retirement sanctuary. Jade lowered her voice, though I was surprised to see the deed in her name. I thought, oh, look, I interrupted, gesturing to where Seamus was emerging from the wine cellar. I think they're starting the boat tours. I escaped to the kitchen, where caterers rushed around with military precision. Through the window, I could see guests lining up for rides on the new yacht. Daisy's Dream, emblazoned on its hull in gold leaf. My phone buzzed again. Stephanie this time. Saw the social media posts. They're really going all in. That's the plan, I texted back. You okay? Before I could respond, Seamus stumbled into the kitchen, his cheeks flushed. Baby, where have you been hiding? Come see what Mom's done with the boathouse. In a minute, I smiled. Just checking on the caterers. Always working. He kissed my cheek, his breath heavy with expensive wine. That's my girl. But hey, Mom wants to make an announcement. Family photo time. Out on the deck, Daisy clinked her glass for attention. The setting sun painted the lake gold, a perfect backdrop for her moment. Friends, family, she began. I want to thank you all for celebrating this milestone with us. This house represents everything the Dunn family stands for: success, sophistication, and smart planning. The crowd murmured appreciatively. I recorded every word on my phone. And while some might think it extravagant, she continued, her eyes finding mine, we know the value of creating a legacy. This will be our family's anchor for generations to come. More applause. Seamus pulled me close for photos, his arm heavy across my shoulders. Smile, honey, he whispered. Mom's really happy with how this all worked out. I smiled wider, thinking of Percy's Monday morning schedule. Later, after the guests had gone and Seamus had passed out in the master suite, I found Daisy in the kitchen, reviewing party photos on her phone. What a perfect evening, she sighed contentedly. Though next time, dear, do try to mingle more. People might think you're ungrateful. Wouldn't want that, I said softly. No, you wouldn't. She patted my cheek. Good night, dear. Don't forget to set the alarm. I waited until her footsteps faded upstairs before checking my phone one last time. Percy had sent a final message. Demand letter drafted. What time Monday? I looked around at the empty glasses, the scattered evidence of their excess, the receipts for things I'd paid for but would never own. 9 a.m., I typed back. Let's start their week right. Then I set the alarm, just like the good daughter-in-law I'd always been, and went to sleep in the guest room of a house that would soon destroy its owners. The courier arrived at exactly 9 a.m., just as Daisy was arranging fresh flowers in the foyer. I watched from the kitchen as she signed for the envelope, her perfectly manicured nails gleaming in the morning light. "Mara!" she called out, frowning at the legal letterhead. "What's this about a demand letter?" "Why don't you read it?" I suggested, pouring myself a second cup of coffee. "I'm sure Seamus would want to see it too." "Seamus!" Her voice cracked like a whip. "Get down here now!" My husband stumbled down the stairs, still in his monogrammed robe. "Mom?" "What's wrong?" "Read this." She thrust the paper at him. "This has to be a mistake." I leaned against the counter, watching their faces as reality sank in. The demand for $540,000, due within 30 days. The threat of foreclosure. The fine print they'd never bothered to read. "This is ridiculous," Seamus sputtered. "Mara, call your lawyer. Someone's trying to scam us." "Actually," I set down my coffee cup, "I am the lender. And that's my lawyer's signature." The silence that followed was worth every second of the past 12 years. "What?" Daisy whispered, her face draining of color. But you gave us the money. For the house." "No," I corrected her. "I loaned you the money, with very specific terms, the same terms you both signed without reading." Seamus grabbed the contract, flipping through pages he should have reviewed weeks ago. "This is fraud." "You tricked us." "Did I?" I pulled out my phone, playing the recording from Percy's office. Their voices filled the kitchen, clearly agreeing to all terms, dismissing every opportunity to review the documents. "You can't do this," Daisy's voice shook. "We're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Was it family when you convinced Seamus to put his name on my condo, or when you drained my savings for your pet projects?" "That was different," Seamus protested. "I'm your husband, and this is your debt," I replied. "All legal, all binding, all yours." Daisy collapsed into a chair, her designer outfit suddenly looking like costume jewelry. "We'll fight this. We'll get another lawyer." "Check the contract," I suggested. "Any legal claims have to go through arbitration in my chosen jurisdiction, and good luck finding a lawyer who'll take on Stephanie." "You planned this," Seamus accused, his face red. "All along you were setting us up." "No," I corrected him. "I just let you be exactly who you are. Greedy, entitled, careless. We can't pay this in 30 days. Daisy's voice rose to a shriek. "Everything's tied up in renovations." "I know," I said quietly. "I paid for them." Seamus reached for me, but I stepped back. "Baby, please, we can work this out. I'm your husband." "Check your email," I cut him off. Stephanie sent divorce papers this morning, too. That's when Daisy started crying. Not her usual delicate tears, but ugly mascara-running sobs. "This will ruin us. Our reputation." "Like you ruined my credit when you maxed out my cards?" I asked. "Or my reputation when you told everyone I was emotionally unstable with money?" "I'll call the contractor," Seamus said desperately. "Maybe we can sell some of the upgrades." "You'd need my permission for that," I reminded him. Check Clause 23B. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Percy, right on schedule. "Good morning," he said professionally. "I'm here to do the preliminary foreclosure assessment." Daisy launched herself at him. "This is all your fault. You let us sign without reading?" Percy raised an eyebrow. "That's not my responsibility, Mrs. Dunn. Perhaps you should have taken your daughter-in-law's financial expertise more seriously." I picked up my purse, heading for the door. "I'll leave you to it. Oh, and Daisy, the flowers are lovely. Enjoy them while you can." "This was your plan all along," she whispered, sinking back into her chair. You tricked your own husband. I paused at the door, thinking of all the times they'd tricked me, used me, dismissed me. No, I said softly. I just finally played by your rules. Karma's funny that way. I left them there, surrounded by their expensive renovations and crushing debt, knowing that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. And I had 30 days to watch it all unfold. They're trying to refinance through 3 different banks, Stephanie said, sliding her phone across her desk to show me the credit inquiries. All declined, of course. Let me guess, the debt assumption clause scared them off? That, and the fact that Daisy's been calling them all, screaming about fraud. Stephanie smirked. Nothing makes a bank nervous quite like the word fraud, even when it's baseless. My own phone buzzed for the 100th time that week. Seamus again. Baby, please, his text read. Just talk to me, we can fix this. I turned the phone face down as Stephanie poured us both a glass of wine. He's been showing up at my office too. Had security escort him out yesterday. Daisy's been busy as well, I said, taking a sip. She's telling everyone I had some kind of mental breakdown after my grandmother died. That I'm not well. Classic gaslighting. How are you holding up? Before I could answer, there was a knock at her office door. The secretary poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a man here insisting on seeing Ms. Wood. Says he's her brother? My heart stopped. Clifford? He stepped into the office, looking exactly like and nothing like the brother I remembered. Same dark hair, but grayer now. Same eyes, but harder. Hey, sis, he said quietly. Heard you finally stood up to the dragon lady. How did you? Small town, big gossip. He sat down uninvited. Especially when Daisy Dunn starts calling everyone she knows, trying to get emergency loans. Stephanie excused herself, leaving us alone with our decade of silence. Why are you here, Cliff? He pulled out an old leather journal from his jacket. Found this when I was cleaning out Dad's place. Thought you should have it. I recognized our great-grandmother's handwriting immediately. Why now? Because I owe you the truth. About why I left. He leaned forward. Daisy didn't just start with you, Mara. She's been destroying families for years. What are you talking about? Remember when Dad's business collapsed? Right after I got engaged to Daisy's niece? His laugh was bitter. Turns out Daisy had been spreading rumors to his clients, said he was embezzling funds. By the time we proved it wasn't true, everything was gone. My hands shook as I opened the journal. Inside were detailed notes, dates, conversations, bank statements. Our great-grandmother had been tracking Daisy's manipulations for years. She's been doing this for decades, Clifford continued, finding ways to control people through money, reputation, family ties. Gran was onto her, but no one would listen to an old woman. Why didn't you tell me? By the time I figured it all out, you were already married to Seamus. I tried to warn you at the wedding, remember? I did remember. He'd pulled me aside, started to say something about Daisy, but she'd interrupted. A week later, he'd disappeared from our lives. I was a coward, he admitted. I ran instead of fighting. But when I heard what you did, he grinned. Gran would have loved it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Percy. Daisy just tried to list the house for sale, his message read. Realtor ran the title check and backed out immediately. They're getting desperate, I told Clifford. Running out of options. Good. He stood up. Look, I know I don't have any right to ask, but can I stick around? See how this plays out? Before I could answer, Stephanie burst back in. Mara, you need to see this. She pulled up Daisy's social media. There, in perfectly crafted prose, was a long post about her troubled daughter-in-law, who was clearly suffering from grief-induced paranoia. She's trying to build a case, Stephanie said. Paint you as mentally unstable to challenge the contracts. I thought about the journal in my hands, about decades of manipulation and destruction. Let her try, I said, pulling out my own phone. I've got 12 years of receipts, recordings, and witnesses. Plus, I held up the journal. Apparently, I've got family history on my side. Clifford smiled. A real smile this time. Want some help bringing down the dragon lady? I looked at the journal, thinking about our grandmother's careful documentation, our great-grandmother's silent witness. Actually, I said, I think we've got an army. The lake house looked different in the rain, smaller somehow, less like a dream home and more like the expensive trap it had become. I stood in the driveway, watching Seamus pace on the covered porch. The bank won't even take my calls anymore, he said when I approached. My 401k isn't enough to cover even half the debt. I know. I stayed at the bottom of the steps, keeping my distance. That's why I'm here. To gloat? His voice cracked. To watch us lose everything? No, to give you one last chance to do the right thing. The front door opened, and Daisy appeared, her designer outfit replaced by what passed for casual wear in her world. Come to fix the mess you've made? Actually, I pulled out my phone. I came to show you something. I played the video Clifford had found, security footage from my grandmother's attorney's office, showing Daisy trying to access my inheritance documents weeks before the will was even read. That's... Daisy sputtered. That's taken out of context. Like this? I played another recording. Daisy on the phone with her bank years ago spreading lies about my father's business practices. Or maybe this. Another video, this time of her pressuring Seamus to put his name on my condo's deed. You've been recording us? Seamus looked pale. No, other people have. Turns out I'm not the first person you've tried to destroy. I gestured to my car, where Clifford sat watching. My brother had quite the collection of evidence. So did Gran. Daisy gripped the porch railing. That ungrateful boy has no right. To what? Tell the truth. I climbed one step. About how you systematically targeted and destroyed anyone who threatened your control? I protected this family, she shrieked. Everything I did was for Seamus. Mom? Seamus's voice was quiet. What is she talking about? Show him, I said. Show him the trust fund you actually drained, not the market crash you blamed it on. Show him the real reason his father left. Daisy lunged for me, but Seamus caught her arm. Mom? She's lying, Daisy hissed. She's trying to turn you against me, just like your father did. The paperwork's all there, I said, pulling out Gran's journal. Every transaction, every manipulation. Your mother's been playing chess with other people's lives for decades, Seamus. I'm just the first one who played better. Rain pounded the roof as Seamus read, his face growing paler with each page. Daisy kept trying to grab the journal, but he held her back. All those times you said Dad abandoned us, he whispered. You drove him away. You destroyed his business. I made you strong. Daisy's mascara ran in black streaks. Everything I did was to make you strong. No, I corrected her. Everything you did was to keep control, and now you've lost it. What do you want? Seamus asked, still holding the journal like it might bite him. Sign the divorce papers. Clean. Quick. No contests. I pulled out the envelope. And make a public statement admitting what really happened with this house. Never! Daisy tried to snatch the papers, but Seamus held her back again. If you don't, I continued, every bank, every social contact, every country club member gets copies of everything I have, including the proof of fraud from Dad's case. You wouldn't, Daisy breathed. Try me. Seamus looked between us, then at the journal in his hands. All these years. Choose now, I said. Your mother's lies, or your chance to finally do something honest. He walked down the steps, took the pen I offered, and signed. Each signature seemed to age him a decade. I'm sorry, he said, not looking at me. I should have seen it. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Daisy screamed something about ingrates and traitors, but I was already walking away. In my car, Clifford waited with a camera, documenting everything. You got it all? I asked. He nodded. Every word. Every reaction. He paused. Think he'll really come clean? He will. I started the engine. Because if he doesn't, part 2 of this story goes viral tomorrow. As we drove away, I watched in the rearview mirror as Daisy crumpled on the porch of her dream house, while Seamus stood in the rain, still holding the journal that shattered his world. Karma doesn't miss, and neither did I. Your story just hit 1 million views, Stephanie said, setting her laptop on my beach house deck. The comments are wild. I adjusted my sunglasses, watching waves crash against pristine sand. My new home wasn't as grand as the lake house, but it was mine. Actually mine. Read me the best ones, I said, pouring us both iced tea. Here's a good one. I've never seen karma executed with such precision. This woman is my hero. Stephanie scrolled down. Oh, and this. As someone whose mother-in-law tried the same thing, I'm taking notes. My phone buzzed. A text from Clifford. Turn on Channel 7, now. I grabbed the remote, switching on the deck's outdoor TV. There was Seamus, looking uncomfortable in a suit, standing behind a podium. I'm here to set the record straight, he began, reading from cards. The viral story about the lake house scandal is true. My mother and I attempted to manipulate and defraud my ex-wife out of her inheritance. Stephanie whistled low. He actually did it. Because if he didn't, part 2 would have ruined him completely, I reminded her. On screen, Seamus continued. Furthermore, I need to address decades of financial and emotional manipulation orchestrated by my mother, Daisy Dunn, affecting multiple families in our community. Speaking of Daisy, Stephanie muted the TV. Heard from her niece this morning. Apparently, the retirement community in Arizona isn't quite up to her standards. I smiled, thinking of Daisy's face when her social circle imploded, when her carefully curated reputation shattered under the weight of truth. The country club had revoked her membership within hours of Seamus's first confession. The streaming service called again, Stephanie said, pulling up an email. They're offering double the original option price for your story rights. Tell them yes, I decided. But I want creative control. Already negotiated that, she grinned. They love the working title, The Dragon's Daughter. The deck door slid open, and Clifford emerged carrying a familiar leather journal. Found more, he said, sitting down. Gran had a whole second volume hidden in her attic. Wait till you see what Daisy did in the 80s. Save it for season 2, I suggested, making him laugh. My phone lit up with another notification, a message from Percy. Foreclosure complete. House goes to auction next week. Thought you'd want to know. You going to buy it? Stephanie asked, reading over my shoulder. No. I watched another wave crash. Some things are worth more than money. Speaking of worth, Clifford pulled out an envelope. Remember that investment Dad lost because of Daisy's rumors? Turns out the company went public last year. His original shares would have been worth millions. That explains why she worked so hard to destroy him, I said. She couldn't stand anyone else having control. The TV showed Seamus finishing his statement, looking directly into the camera. To my ex-wife, I'm sorry. You were always smarter than we gave you credit for. Damn right. Stephanie raised her glass. To the woman who outplayed the players. We clinked glasses as my phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. Daisy, using her niece's phone. I typed back, I am. Enjoy Arizona. Then I blocked the number, turned off my phone, and looked out at my private beach. No more manipulation, no more gaslighting, no more pretending to be less than I am. You know what the best revenge is? I asked, watching pelicans dive into crystal water. Living well? Stephanie suggested. No, I smiled. Documentation, records, receipts. The truth always comes out. You just have to be patient enough to wait for the right moment. And brave enough to use it, Clifford added. They thought I was too much, I said, thinking of all the times they'd tried to make me smaller. Too emotional, too careful with money, too focused on details. They were wrong, Stephanie said. No, I corrected her. They were right. I was too much for them. But it turns out that's exactly what I needed to be. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the ocean and listening to the media frenzy around Seamus's confession. Sometimes the best endings aren't about riding off into the sunset. Sometimes they're about staying exactly where you are, being exactly who you are, and letting karma do the rest.